1580. After Biden and Trump square off, we want you to sound off and tell us what you think. At KBLA Talk 1580, you can black talk us anytime.
I'm gonna try to keep it coming. Things ain't always so, but I'll be alright as long as I can find the good. Yes, I will. Somehow I know that I can make it. You seem to like my style. Don't you worry, I'm gonna be around a while.
Live from historic Leonard Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavisSmileyShow.com. That's thetavisSmileyShow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour.
40 acres and a mule. I've heard that phrase all my life, and I really thought I knew the history behind it, but I didn't. I knew that after surviving the brutality of slavery, newly freed black people were made a promise of land.
Black people had a vision that if I can get my toehold in this land, I can take care of myself.
But what I didn't know is that it was more than that.
It was a program. It was rolled out. There are documents to show it.
Land titles, ink on paper. After the Civil War, the federal government actually gave formerly enslaved people land, 40 acres, and then took it back.
Can you imagine? I can't. They had it, and then they just pulled the rug from under them, so to speak.
This was a betrayal.
More than 150 years later, reporters from the Center for Public Integrity uncovered many of those land titles, people who got them and where.
Samuel Miller, 40 acres on Edisto. Fergus Wilson, 40 acres on Sapelo Island. Primus Morrison, 40 acres on Edisto. Lucy Crosby, Philip Young, Amos Jackson, Cyrus Jenkins.
So far, we found more than 1,200 people who got land and had it taken away. We found some of their descendants.
Great-grandfather. That's my great-grandfather. I had to tell somebody.
And we met people who own that land today.
My question is, where do we go from here? Do they want it back?
Having hard conversations about what's owed.
I don't know. I wish I had an answer to that. I'm not happy with where this world is or where this country is right now.
That's why we're trying to understand what do we think we should do to try to reckon with that past.
Turn that thing off for a second.
From Reveal and the Center for Public Integrity, 40 Acres and a Lie, a reparation that wasn't, and wealth gap that remains. A 3-part series starts June 15th on Reveal. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Senior reporter for the Center for Public Integrity, April Simpson, joins us to discuss the new 3-part investigative documentary about the dark history of Reconstruction called 40 Acres and a Lie. That in our second hour. I can't wait for that conversation. In our third hour today, 2 conversations. Up first, we continue a series of conversations with HBCU presidents. Today, Dr. Herman J. Felton Jr. of Wiley University. On the B side of our 3, Chris Hooks, editor-in-chief of the Boston Globe's Money, Power, and Inequality newsroom team, takes us inside their new series on 50 years of busing in Boston, broken promises, unfulfilled hope. All that said, in this first hour today, a conversation with a noted economist, political scientist, and author Glenn Loury about his provocative new text, Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative. The book is a shockingly frank memoir wherein Professor Loury reflects on his personal odyssey and his changing positions on identity, race, belief, and more. I am pleased to welcome Professor Glenn Loury to this program. Loury, how are you today, sir?
Oh, Tavis, I'm doing very well. Good to be with you. Thank you.
It is an honor to have you on this program. I don't ever do this, but let me do it today because I know right now, having gone through your text, there is no way I can do justice to this book called Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative. I cannot do justice to this book in an hour. If I had 3 hours, I do have 3 hours. If I had 3 hours just for you today, I could not do justice to this text. So let me just give the audience at the outset of our conversation here a sense of what is in this book. And we will do our best to track as much as we can about his life, work, and witness in this hour. As I mentioned, he is one of the most prominent public intellectuals of our time. He's often radically opposed, don't I know that, to the mainstream political thought. And he delights, I think, in upending what's expected of a black public figure. But more to the point and more to the argument themselves, issues like affirmative action, institutional racism, Trumpism, I think it's fair to say that his public life has been characterized by a willingness to recalibrate his strongly held and forcefully argued beliefs. Not unwilling, as I say all the time around here, not unwilling to, excuse me, he is not unwilling to re-examine the assumptions he holds, not unwilling to engage in conversation that might allow him to expand his inventory of ideas. He's been pretty public about wrestling with his own arguments over the years that I've known him, over the years he's been in public spaces. He grew up on the south side of Chicago, earned a PhD in MIT's economics program, and became the first black tenured professor of economics at Harvard at the age of just 33. He has been at turns a young father, a crack addict, an adulterer, a psychiatric patient, a born-again Christian, a lapsed born-again Christian, a black Reaganite, and he is swung from the right to the left, and dare I say, back again. In this book, Late Admissions, he examines what it means to, I think, chart a sense of self over the course of a tempestuous, to be sure, but well-considered life. That gives you just a sense of who Glenn Loury is, what he talks about in this book. I don't know for the life of me why he would be so transparent at 75 years of age, but we're going to get into this book. I promise you, you will not be disappointed by this conversation and all the reveals in this book that everybody in the country is talking about, called Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative. That said, June is Black Music Month, and every day this month we choose a different artist of the day, and we play the best of their music. Today, it is Stevie Wonder.
45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
Not feeling yourself lately? Have your weight loss dreams turned into weight gain nightmares? Have you been chasing those same 20 pounds for like 20 years now? If so, it's time for D-Herbs. D-Herbs is a full-body cleanse, a natural cleansing regimen, in fact, that can help you lose 20 pounds in just 20 days. The full-body cleanse will also boost your immune system and improve your digestion. With summer now here, you can finally stop chasing those 20 pounds and propel yourself into a healthier lifestyle. To reboot your system and lose weight, go to dherbs.com and order your full-body cleanse or call 866-434-3727. If you mention Tavis at checkout, they will give you a discount. dherbs.com. Experience healing.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you can receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Tune in to More Than That live this weekend or wherever you listen to podcasts. This episode of More Than That is sponsored by Kroger, working to increase access to fresh and healthy food in our local communities. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $2,860 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take your retail delivery by 7/1/24.
We see a lot of news about teens vaping, but teens see something else. Videos on social media that glamorize it and downplay the dangers of nicotine. How can parents talk so kids will listen? Use facts. 1. Nicotine can rewire teens' brains, or anxious. 3. Changes to the brain can be permanent, so even when it hides behind a new look, nicotine is brain poison. Go to undo.org for more.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard Mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Kind of like choosing Derek Jeter as the pinch hitter for your baseball team.
Jeter, you're in. We need a home run.
I'll give it a try. I've swung a bat once or twice.
That's out of here. Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision? That's banking reimagined. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA member FDIC.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't get left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Sylvester Stevie Wonder all day today. All 3 hours of our program as we continue celebrating June as Black Music Month. It is our joy, our delight, every day on this program in the month of June to choose a different artist of the day who we call our artist in residence. And for 3 hours we weave and bob in and out of these conversations with these amazing guests playing the best of that artist of the day. And today it is Stevland Morris. And I couldn't be happier about it. Love me some Stevie Wonder, as I know you do. In this hour, so honored to have the author of the new book, Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative, the noted and legendary Professor Glenn C. Lowry. I said a moment ago, Professor Lowry, that knowing you as I have known you, somewhat up close, mostly from a distance, we've spent some time together over the years, I was shocked. I was shocked by your uber transparency in this book. I just gave a sense to the audience of how open, how honest, how transparent you are in this text. My first question is why? At age 75, why at this point? Tell all your business, man.
Well, it's not a strategic calculation. I can tell you that much. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it because I was trying to burnish my reputation or manage my brand. I think once I got started on this project, I didn't start out knowing how it was going to end up, but I became committed to this idea about telling the truth about my life, in the first instance, to myself. Mm. I had to peel away the cover stories, the different things that had gone on, and ask myself some basic questions. And I decided at 75 years old, yes, and with, a lot of baggage behind me, but also a lot of accomplishment, that I was going to roll the dice, tell the truth to myself and to the world, to my children, and in the memory of my ancestors about my life, and let the chips fall where they may. That's what I've done.
Mm. And what has the response been? The book's been out for a few weeks now. We had some issues just trying to get a date locked in that worked for you and for me on our show, and I'm glad we finally got this done. But what has the response been like in the few weeks that the text has been out?
I think we're doing okay. I may be a little bit early to gauge the sales numbers. I don't know that we're going to break any records, but I'm told that sales are robust and growing, both of the print and of the audio book. The reviews have been, on the whole, very supportive and positive. I mean, they have evinced the same incredulity that you have given witness to. Mm-hmm. Man, really? You're going to tell us everything? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing like that. People have made something out of that point. But I think there has been at the Wall Street Journal, at the Washington Post, at the New York Times, a couple of pieces at the New York Times, one in the magazine, mm-hmm. At NPR, where I did On Point, at Book Notes on C-SPAN, and at many other venues besides. Yeah. They've taken the book seriously. They see it as a piece of literature, a good, solid piece of writing, a compelling story. People talk about not being able to put it down. And a revealing story, both about the author, but also about his times. Yeah. So I'm on the whole, I'm pleased.
Yeah. I want to manage our time as best we can and cover as much ground as we can. Again, that's why at the outset, sort of gave the audience a synopsis of the book. You've been through a lot, and you have indeed accomplished a lot. But I can't do justice to any of that in 60 minutes. But we'll do what we can here. Let me start with this. Tell me briefly about growing up on the South Side of Chicago, because when you think about the South Side of Chicago, the first thing that comes to mind ain't black conservatism. That ain't the first thing that comes to mind when I think about the South or the West Side of Chicago. We'll get to the black conservative part a little bit later. I trust you. I promise you. Trust and believe. But tell me very quickly about growing up on the South Side of Chicago.
Well, I grew up in the 50s and 60s. I was born in 1948. I was lucky to have a family that had migrated my mother's side up from Mississippi and Tennessee after World War I. So my mother was a second-generation Chicago African-American. She was born in 1928, and my father was born in 1929, and his people had also come from the South. We didn't live in a ghetto. It was a black neighborhood. It had been a white neighborhood, and then, it transitioned to being a black neighborhood, but it was a pretty stable middle-class neighborhood. My mother and father were divorced when I was young, but my mother's sister, my Auntie Lois, whom I discuss in the book right from the start, was a very accomplished woman, a small business woman, and a queen. I mean, she presided over our family with a certain regal elegance and kept a beautiful home and invited my mother and my sister and I to come and live with her in a small apartment carved out of the upstairs back of this big, beautiful, sprawling house that she owned. And I grew up in that house, in that neighborhood. I grew up where you didn't hear gunshots. I grew up where people kept the lawns in the front of their houses and had fruit trees in their backyards, where you could leave your bike on the front of the house and not worry about it being stolen. I grew up in a pretty stable, working middle-class African-American community on the south side of Chicago in the 50s and 60s.
It is important to understand that backstory. I think as we move through this conversation, you'll understand why I wanted to give you a sense of how he grew up. We all are the sum total of our life's experiences. It's important to hear that part of the story. At the age of 12, actually just before the age of 12, they discovered that you are a child prodigy. They discovered that you are a child prodigy pretty early on, black boy child prodigy, and you go to high school at what age? High school.
I'm at 12 years old when I first started classes in high school. So I had gotten a couple of double promotions coming along the way.
Yeah. So tell me about that part. Tell me about your those who raised you, and I mean in your entire circle, and how they realized that you were in fact a prodigy at such an early age. And just take me back to going to high school at age 12.
Well, so I was a precocious kid. You know, I was at the head of the class. I was good at math. They recognized my talent in grammar school, and it was a combination of a registration error. My mother's brother took me to sign me up for school, and he didn't know exactly how old I was. They put me a little bit ahead of myself. And then in the 6th grade, the teacher said, you're bored. You're not being challenged. We're going to put you ahead to the 8th grade, kind of thing like that. And I was 12 years old when I graduated high school, from grade school, from the 8th grade. Mm-hmm. But I was, I loved chess. I loved puzzles. I had a slide rule. I did tables of logarithms. I was a little nerdy. I did Latin. I was the brainiac kid in the classroom. But I was also the jokester. I was the kid to make everybody laugh. I would try to draw attention to myself with pranks and antics and whatnot like that. Voted most talkative in my high school graduating class, for example. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit out of step on the social side. I mean, everybody was, having girlfriends and, having sex and doing stuff. And I kind of was odd man out in the dating game, and that chafed on me, especially since my uncles, my mother's brothers, Adlert and Alfred, were notorious ladies' men. I mean, they were busy.
While you're at that, let me put some context to this. Again, trying to manage this as best I can. Tell me about the one uncle. You know who I'm asking about. The one who had all the kids. I'll let you give the number. This is just one of your uncles who helped raise you. How many kids did he have, Glenn Lowry?
He had 22 kids and 4 different mothers. The 12 Roses, the Magnificent 7, the Dynamic Duo, and the Lone Ranger. That's what they called themselves. The Cartmans. My middle name, Glenn Cartman Lowry. My uncle, my mother's brother, Alfred Cartman, fathered 22 children. And when he was at his 78th birthday party, they took a photograph of him and his direct descendants, and there were over 120 people in the photograph.
As you can already tell from the setup to this story, Glenn Lowry might have been a little nerdy when he was just a 12-year-old, but trust me, on the sex part, he caught up. I've already sort of acknowledged that. We'll get to that part, I promise you, in a moment. I was laughing when you said you were voted the most talkative. I laughed. That's the one thing we had in common, Glenn Lowry. We don't agree politically, but we had that one thing in common. We were the most talkative. My mama's listening right now in Indiana. She can attest to that. I got in trouble a whole lot of times for being the most talkative in the classroom. I digress on that. Again, moving this story forward as best we can. You go to high school at age 12 because you're a black male prodigy, but at some point you end up, believe it or not, becoming a dropout. Tell me that part, Mr. Prodigy, Mr. Child Prodigy.
Well, I didn't drop out of high school. I graduated high school at 16. I went to college at Illinois Institute of Technology, the engineering school in Chicago. But I was 16. I had never really had any fun. I was partying, going with my friend, John, my buddy from New York City, was also a student at the school. Drinking screwdrivers in the middle of the day, picking up girls at the housing project out in the parking lot and whatnot for joyriding, smoking a little weed. I wasn't serious. I didn't go to class. I didn't study. I was trying to kind of make up for lost time on the partying side, and I blew it. My dad scraped together a little bit of money to give me, a little nest egg. He said, "Here, you're going to college. I'm proud of you, whatever." And I blew it. I just was not very responsible as a kid, straight out of high school on my own for the first time, and didn't manage my time very well.
So juxtapose for me how one ends up being a college dropout and then graduating some years later from MIT and then becoming the youngest tenured professor ever in the economics department at Harvard. Tell me that part. How does all that fit into one story?
I dropped out of the Illinois Institute of Technology in 1967 in the spring when my girlfriend becomes pregnant and gives birth, and I go to work. I drop out of college. I go to a community college, 1969, 1970, and get discovered by one of my teachers there who recommends me for a scholarship at Northwestern University for inner city kids whom they're trying to, it's 1970, they're trying to give a break to the kids from the inner city. And I'm one of those kids. And I get to Northwestern, and suddenly my potential is realized. Suddenly I'm in these classrooms with these top flight things and it's, all this advanced philosophy and math and econ, and I'm acing everything, and I kind of break through. So in 1972 I go off to graduate school at MIT, get my PhD in 1976, take a job as an assistant professor, get promoted to associate professor, and what with Harvard looking for talented black social scientists to bring in to shore up their Afro-American Studies department, I ended up with an offer from Harvard in 1982. So that's from 1967, college dropout, 1972, college graduate, 1976, PhD, 1982, Harvard professorship.
Now, that's the Glenn Lowry that we're talking to. It is, I told you, a fascinating, he's kind of like a Black Forrest Gump. It is a fascinating life. But you also heard Glenn Lowry say a moment ago that he got into Northwestern basically on an affirmative action program. How then this Negro turned into a black conservative pushing back against affirmative action, I will never know. We'll talk about that part when we come forward with Glenn Lowry on Tavis Smiley.
Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Tampa, Florida officials won't abandon plans to get state funding for an arts venue. Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed funding for an amphitheater in the city's Central Avenue Business District. The area is significant for African Americans because it was where many newly freed slaves lived. Tampa State Representative Diane Hart says she'll file another request for state funding. The restaurant chain Hooters is closing dozens of locations all around the country. The company cited pressure from current market conditions. A list provided to USA Today shows restaurants shuttered in 14 states. The move comes as Hooters this month announced the launch of frozen products at grocery stores. It's a first for the 41-year-old company. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA draft tips off tonight in New York City. The NBA is experimenting with a two-day draft for the first time. First round begins tonight at 5 p.m. Live coverage on ESPN and ABC. Second round is tomorrow. The TV ratings may determine if the NBA sticks with this two-day format. There could be more interest than usual in the second round. A lot of eyes will be on Bronny James to see what team may select LeBron's son. Bronny is projected to be a second-round pick. The Lakers have a second-round pick at number 55. Their first-round pick is number 17. Bronny worked out for only two teams, the Lakers and Phoenix. Phoenix has the number 22 pick. Likely the Suns would use their first-round pick on Bronny. When the Lakers' turn comes up in the second round, the whole world will be watching to see what they do. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's so many more years of loving and serving our community. For KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertiri Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer over 50 different custom window treatments, including faux wood blinds and shutters, all at prices less than retail. Plus, we'll send you free samples before you buy. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. Sounds different. This is Tavis Smiley.
Look
It's the best of Stevie Wonder, all 3 hours of our program today as we continue celebrating June as Black Music Month. Just gives you a good feeling when you hear the voice of Stevie Wonder. Nobody has, if you know his corpus as I do, nobody has sung about everything the way that Stevie has. I don't care what the occasion is. I've learned this over years of being on radio and television. I don't care what the occasion is. Stevie is the one artist that's got a song for you. I don't care what it is. Stevie has written a song for that occasion. I digress. Love me some Stevie Wonder. Our guest in this hour is the author of the new book, Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative, the iconic, legendary professor, Glenn Lowry, who I'm honored to have on this program. I'm bouncing around here, Glenn Lowry. You take my point, trying to make the most of this time. So when the audience hears you acknowledge that you got into Northwestern because by your own admission, they were looking to give opportunities to people of color, not unlike Clarence Thomas, who got into Yale on an affirmative action program and then tried to pull the ladder up for everybody else. I digress on that for now. But how do you explain over the years all the debates I've seen you in, the debates I've had with you about corrective programs like affirmative action, given that you were a beneficiary of it?
I'd say two things to that. I'd say, Warren Buffett, the billionaire financier, if he looks at the U.S. tax code, he's liable to say, I'm sure we can find him saying something like that, my taxes are too low, I'm paying less tax than my secretary, that's not fair.
That's right.
Okay, now, he's not a hypocrite for filing a tax return under the rules such as they exist, even if he thinks those rules are not fair. There's no inconsistency in that. He's just going by the rules as they exist. I was a kid in Chicago in 1969, 1970 when I got discovered by Northwestern University and brought in on a scholarship. I didn't ask for anything. I was just going along with whatever it was that was in the air at that time. That was 54 years ago. That was a different world. If you look at my PhD dissertation, MIT 1976, I'm asking, is equal opportunity enough for black folks to get social justice? And I'm answering in the negative to that question. I wrote a whole dissertation to that effect. But the year is 2024, and we're asking about how America is going to work for black folk and for everybody else in the 21st century. None of those Asian immigrants, practically none of them, or their parents or their grandparents, were in the country in 1970. This is a new day. Black people can be dependent on affirmative action if we want to. But I shudder at the thought that my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, would be in the position of having to ask for a special deal to make their way in America. That's not the way I want my people to live. So that's why I am saying what I'm saying today.
So I don't want us to live that way either, Glenn. Let me push back on respectfully. I don't want us to live that way, and I can't imagine any of my guests listening, any of my audience rather, you are the guest, any of the audience members listening right now want that either. But here's the thing. Racism, I still believe, is the most intractable issue in this country, number one. And number two, I think too often we ask the wrong question. If you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. The question is not, to your point of that being 50 years ago, the question is not whether we have made progress over the last 50 years, the last 100 or 200 years. It's not whether we are better off today than we were then. Of course we are. That's an idiotic question. The question is, it's a real-time question. How do black folk fare today up against white folk today? Not whether we've made progress over the last 50 years, and by that metric, we are still lag far behind. You know the data, you're the economist. We lag far behind in every single leading economic indicator category. And so even though somebody helped you out 50 years ago, apparently these black folks still need help given those economic disparities, which is your lane.
I don't think affirmative action is the help they need. I think the help we need is developing our potential to be competitive on a level playing field. I don't think you want to build into the cake the idea that I'm a disadvantage, I am a victim, I am impeded, my history hangs over me. The country is dynamic, it's forward-looking. Nobody is going to, we black folks, if we keep up with this affirmative action, and I know you disagree, Tavis, and I respect you, and I love Stevie Wonder too. I love me some Stevie Wonder. So right on. We're going to look up, and history will have passed us, not all of us, 30%, 35% will have passed us by. The 21st century is not waiting for anybody. Artificial intelligence is not waiting for anybody. The Chinese are not waiting for anybody. So I I don't want to be in the position of having to depend upon a special deal. I'm saying, don't dumb down the test for me. Don't lower the standard. Don't use this different cutoff. Don't use a different special lower criteria of judgment. Get out of my way while I get done right. Don't discriminate against me. Of course, racism exists. Of course, we should be against racism. But the problem confronting us in the 21st century is a challenge of realizing our potential, not getting the knee off of our neck. That's my opinion.
Yep. Fair enough. We can debate that for hours, as you well know, and I respect your opinion as well. I disagree with it vehemently. I respect it, though, but there's a lot more of this book I want to cover in the time I have left. Let me pivot once again to some other things. I mentioned earlier that you've been doing a lot in your life. You have been, as I said, at turns a young father, an adulterer, a psychiatric patient, that is, a born-again Christian, a lapsed born-again Christian. In that regard, again, you ain't that unusual from all the rest of us, that we are Christians, that oftentimes we lapse in our faith. We may get to that a little bit later. That doesn't make you particularly unique. What does make you particularly unique is that as a tenured professor at Harvard, you somehow became a crack addict. And the stories you tell in this book of the places and spaces and times, etc., at which your drug use was on display is arresting. How did that happen, Glenn Lowry?
Lord knows, I wish I really understood how it happened. I try to get myself to the bottom of that one in the book, and I'm not sure I completely succeed. It's something of a mystery to me. I mean, I can tell you this. I always had this thing about the streets. And I ask your audience to forgive me because, I know that the pride in the heart of black folk is not gambling. It's not prostitution. It's not drug use. It's not going in the back alley. It's not buying stolen goods. It's not hustling. That the heart of our people is not that. But I have to confess that coming up in Chicago at the time that I did, I saw a lot of my own black authenticity in being able to hang, being able to walk into a bar in a somewhat rundown neighborhood and, know the slang, know how to look people in the eye, not look them in the eye, know how to ask for a drink, know how to get up next to this woman, know how to get over, know how to cop, know the ins and outs. I did that on the dark side, on the wrong side of the line as a kid, coming up in a middle-class black community, but with low-income communities and a lot of shenanigans going on, a lot of street action. And I got myself in the habit of partaking of that to a certain degree. And I came to a point where I found, to a certain extent, as I was negotiating these elite spaces, I'm the only black guy in the room, I'm at Harvard, I'm in, the upper. I found that is a kind of relief, is a kind of touchstone of home. And I know that it's not healthy. I'm not defending this, okay? I'm just saying that's the reality of what my life was. And it followed me all the way through Northwestern and through MIT and through my early career, and I end up in the spotlight. I end up at Harvard, but I'm still hanging. I'm still going to cop weed over in the housing project. I'm still going down to Washington Street and, where there's action on the street and where I felt like I was on the thrill-seeking side of the line. And it caught up with me.
I get it. It did caught up. It did catch up with him. At one point, while at Harvard, as a tenured professor, he got arrested, and it made all kinds of national news. And he talks about that in the book as well. It is a fascinating, raw reveal. And I thank Glenn Lowry for writing the story and being so open about it. I've got more to talk to him about. You hear how bright he is. Obviously, he was a genius when he was a kid. At 12, he's still a genius. And I have a hard time understanding how black geniuses end up supporting Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump. We'll talk about that part when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can't get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again. At work,
text LION to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermal, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text LION to 42424. That's LION to 42424.
Did you know that streaming music, ebooks, audiobooks, movies, and more is available for free from the Los Angeles Public Library? With your library card, you can access the latest music and movies, audiobooks and ebooks, graphic novels, comic books, magazines, and more. If you don't have a library card and live in the city of Los Angeles, you can get a digital card online for free. Check it out at lapl.org/emedia. That's lapl.org/emedia.
Happy anniversary, KBLA! KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. For KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black. Ready to re-examine your assumptions and expand your inventory of ideas? More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
More of Tavis Smiley, the noted professor Glenn C. Lowry, author of the new book, Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative. I told y'all 3 times I could not do justice to this book in an hour. I think you take me at my word now. Watching my time, which is slipping away from me really quickly here. I asked a moment ago, Glenn Lowry, now I'll give you a chance to respond. How does one, and I don't mean to impugn your intelligence, but for those who are listening, who I think are probably considering the same question, how does one, with all your experience, with all your insight, with all your brilliance, end up supporting a guy like Ronald Reagan, and moreover, supporting a guy like Donald Trump? In your book, you make the point that you eventually came to see the light that you'd been a little too open to Trump. Maybe you made a mistake there. But Reagan and Trump, come on, Glenn Lowry.
Okay, well, Reagan is 1980, and basically I was a supply sider. I was a guy that had gotten an education in neoliberal economics, capitalism, and was believing in the market and in low taxes and in economic efficiency and in growth and a rising tide lifting all boats. And, I was young, I was idealistic, and I got caught up in the ethos of that time. I describe in the book how one of my first consulting jobs coming out of my graduate school was working for the oil and gas industry, trying to get the price regulations on natural gas repealed because I thought they were inefficient. And I could go into their argument. It's not going to convince somebody who doesn't, have an inclination toward that argument, but it was free market economics. That was part of it. And the other part of it was Booker T. Washington-like commitment to, or Malcolm X-type commitment to the proposition that nobody is coming to save black people. That they're relying on the Democratic Party, relying on American political liberalism to save black people. Nobody is coming to save us. And that left me in a position of, critical reaction to the ethos of the time, the civil rights ethos of the time. Those two things together predisposed me toward being, in effect, recruited by neoconservative intellectuals into their ranks in the early 1980s. Now, as far as Trump is concerned, I know we don't have much time, but I got to make this clear. I'm not voting for Donald Trump. I'm not endorsing Donald Trump. I was sitting there in 2016 to 2020 watching the country, the elites, the governing elites of this country, in the press, in the academy, in the media, react to the fact of Donald Trump, which I find to be very interesting. It seems to me that the fact of Donald Trump is saying something deep and important about this country, about the failures of the political establishment of this country. He took over the whole Republican Party. He bested the Democrats in 2016, almost won in 2020, and then got a damn good chance of winning in 2024. That is not a fluke. That's not a mistake. That's telling us something. And I just want to try to listen to that rather than jump on this bandwagon of Trump is evil, Trump is bad, Trump is whatever. Anyway, I could go on about that. I say this. That's where that's coming from.
Nope, I want to give you a chance to lay it out. I say this respectfully, and maybe we'll get a few more minutes when we come forth for me to unpack just a bit more. But I'll say this respectfully. Plausible argument, but not persuasive, Glenn. It's a plausible argument. It's just not persuasive. When we come forward, though, I do want to ask you, before I lose you at the top of the hour, about your faith and what all of this has done to your faith. You talk about that in the book. More, actually, just a few minutes left with Glenn Lowry when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by J.P. Morgan Chase & Company.
Looks like Bobby needs a ride again.
Grab the keys. Let's take our auntie to the swap meet. Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, do it all in a Chevy SUV. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $2,860 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8% plus finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available at least in some of the offers. Take your retail delivery by 7/1/24.
I can't believe tax season is here already. But look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Who do you trust to get at the truth? Tavis Smiley. That's who. The conversation continues right now.
He does indeed for the next 4 minutes. I could do hours with Glenn Lowry. I got 4 minutes left. Glenn, I was saying a moment ago that the argument that you made, to me, plausible, not persuasive. I accept your critique of neoliberalism. No question about that. I accept that critique, and I can go as hard or harder than you on a neoliberal critique. I just don't think the answer is a party that ignores us and pushes an agenda that is antithetical to our best interest. That ain't the answer to the prayer either. I digress on that. It's your conversation, not mine. In the 3 minutes I have left, tell me about your faith journey. I joked earlier that you were a born-again Christian, that you were a lapsed born-again Christian, but you wrestle in this book, as I read it, with your faith. Tell me about what this has all done to your faith.
Well, I want your audience to know that I crawled into the church on my hands and knees when I was trying to recover from drug addiction and trying to honor this beautiful, wonderful woman, now deceased, Linda Dr. Lowry, Linda Lowry, my wife at the time, who I had put through hell and who had stuck with me. And we found ourselves in a newly formed, passionate, very deeply committed, Pentecostal-oriented AME congregation in Boston in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Our sons, Glenn and Nehemiah, were born into that congregation, and I was a deacon in that church, in effect, for a good 10 years. But I lost my faith. I mean, I can't tell you in 4 minutes exactly what all of that was about. There was a woman who died in her 40s, and there was a funeral, and I was furious at my fellow Christians because they were dancing around the church talking about her everlasting life, and I was just trying to grapple with the fact that she had been taken from me so tragically, et cetera, et cetera. But there was other stuff too. The church exerted influences on my life that I wanted to be free from. And that's part of the revelatory and confessional character of the book that I'm writing here. I realize in retrospect that I walked away from the church in part because I didn't want to obey the teachings of the church. And I've had to live with that as well. Where I am right now, you could call me an agnostic. I think faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I know that man doesn't live by bread alone. We do not. There is a spiritual realm. I have great respect for people who are trying to grapple with it. I call myself an agnostic, and I try to explain exactly what that's about in the book.
It is a fascinating life. I told you 60 minutes ago, there is no way that I could really delve into the pages of all that Glenn Lowry has written in this text in 60 minutes. But it gives you a sense. And I tell my colleagues all the time, just talking to one a moment ago, that what makes for a great conversation, I've learned this over the years, being honored and humbled to be a talk show host. I've learned over the years that generous listening and charitable listening makes you a great conversationalist. I've learned over the years that every conversation ought to be one where people can situate their humanity in the telling of your story. Glenn Lowry did that. And every conversation that becomes a great conversation is great in part because it leaves you wanting more. And if you want more, the book is called Late Admissions, Confessions of a Black Conservative by Glenn C. Lowry. Professor Lowry, I thank you for the book. I thank you for the conversation. I thank you for always accepting my phone call to come on the program over the years as we have gone back and forth. But it's always a great delight to be in dialogue with you. Congrats on the book. And once again, thank you for being so transparent in the telling of your story. If you're going to do a memoir, you might as well tell the truth. You did that, and I thank you for that, sir.
My pleasure, Tavis. I appreciate you, man. I really do.
Thank you, sir. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wayne. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Chicago, Illinois United Center is beginning to transform for this summer's Democratic National Convention. Monday was move-in day as the arena was being